Welcome to the channel. I'm Arthur and you're watching Dirt Hammers Off-Road. Today we're going to talk a little bit about drive shafts and tell you a little bit about why I selected a Tom Woods drive shaft and why I went with a 1350 in the rear instead of something like a 1310 in the rear. But before we dive into that, a couple things that you should be planning out if you're looking at drive shafts or you're making modifications to your drive line in your Jeep is figure out where you want to be with your Jeep. Make sure you understand what the final goal is. Is the final goal to be the best it can be on 35-inch tires, or is it the final goal to be the best it can be on a set of 40-inch tires and different axles and so forth? So, or are you just going to be an overland rig and you're running 33, 35-inch tires? Maybe you're on 37s and you're a weekend warrior. So the goal is to determine where you want your Jeep to be, and that'll be the first thing to help you determine if you're going with a 1310 or a 1350 drive shaft. And I'm going to put some links below. A couple of links would be from Tom Woods. They have a lot of great information on their website. They have a really good customer service. If you have questions, call them up, give them some information about your application, your usage, and they'll be gladly to answer your questions, get you in the right direction, and make sure you're selecting the proper drive shaft for your Jeep and your use. But we're going to dive in. I'm going to tell you why I went with a 1350, and again, some of the information that I put in the description below, some of the links will be related to how I made my decision to go with a 1350 drive shaft. So if you'll stick around, we'll dive into it and I'll show you a little bit more about the 1350, and we'll talk a little bit of the difference between it and a 1310 drive shaft. So let's dive in. Okay, so the reason I went with a 1350 rear drive shaft instead of a 1310, there is almost $170, $180 difference between the two. I went ahead and made the decision to spend a little extra money, and one reason being is my goal for my Jeep is to be the best it can be on 35-inch tires. That's the decision I'd made a while back, and some of my build decisions are based on a 35-inch tire. That's the reason I selected the Yukon 456 gear package. I went with a Grizzly Yukon lockers front and rear. So the reason I went with the 1350 is, one, I'm in a category to where I could go either way, and meaning that the way I use my Jeep for the types of trails that I got planned, and also the size tire and the gear ratio. So a lot of it has to do with the size tire you have and the gear ratio package that you're running, your use, and also the weight of the vehicle. So guys that are running large tires but are using stock gear ratios, whether it's 321s, the 373s, or even the 410s, sometimes depending on their tire size, they may need a 1350 drive shaft if they're not properly geared. And the reason is the stress and load. There's more stress and load on your drive line when you don't have the right gear set package to match the tires that you're using. And one of the links that I put below will have a chart that will help you make a decision based on your gear ratio, tire size. Will put you in a category of what kind of drive shaft you need, whether it's a 1310 or 1350. I went ahead and went 1350 as my Jeep with the 456 gears, trying to make it the best it can be on 35-inch tires with the Grizzly Yukon locker in the rear. What I have come to find out is the Jeep is a whole lot more capable now in two-wheel drive. I mean, there is tons of trail obstacles that we are just tackling in two-wheel drive versus what we were doing in four-wheel drive. Most of it here recently has been just a lot of heavy mud and ruts and stuff. We haven't tackled a lot of for say more technical stuff. I do have a set of affordable rock sliders, as we'll call them. That way I can get the beauty steps off the Jeep, put a true set of rock sliders on there, and then we're going to start tackling some more of that rocky technical terrain in a lot of the off-road parks. But back to what I was saying is the Jeep is so much more capable with the locker in the rear and with the gear package and the set of size tires that I have. And you also got to think the rear differential and the rear drive line is doing most of the work. That is what's actually pushing the vehicle up a trail, down the road, accelerating, all those kind of things. The front axle is also doing a lot of work, but it's more of a pulling. it's assisting the rear drivetrain more than anything. And that's kind of why I went with a 1310 up front, and we'll talk about that in another video. But so guys, you really need to kind of look at what you're going to do with your Jeep. Guys that do a lot of overlanding, towing, and they run a good sized tire. I know a lot of guys out there do overlanding on 37s and 40-inch tires. With towing, you may want to look at something in the 1350 range. Now, there may be other modifications you may have to make to the Jeep later on. My plan is to upgrade to chrome moly rear axle shafts, just to try to accommodate some of the things that I'm doing with the 1350 shaft. The locker in the rear, got the new gear set, so I think chrome moly rear shafts in the rear would just help kind of finish off the rear drivetrain project and get that where it needs to be. So what you get when you jump up to a 1350, what you actually get is larger U-joints. These are the 1350 Gold Seal U-joints. Probably being the Gold Seal, these are manufactured a little bit differently to have some better strength characteristics, being the Gold Seal. But the big difference between a 1350 and a 1310 is the overall size. The 1350, what you'll find is larger diameter caps. Bearing caps are larger, and I don't have two of them here side by side, but if you was to lay two of the U-joints side by side, a 1310 and a 1350, you'll actually see that the 1350 is increased in size. It's got a little more material. The bearing caps are larger, so overall it's just stronger. Just like a lot of popular aftermarket drive shaft, this is a double cardan, and what that's basically telling you is this is the double cardan system here, where you have two U-joints in this joint. There's also inside here, there's a centering ball. This type of design allows to maximize those different drivetrain angles that you may have at the transmission, transfer case. You know, when you lift a vehicle, things like that. Factory drive shafts, especially on Jeeps, that Zebra joint typically ends up getting a lot of wear and stress and ends up getting destroyed on lifted Jeeps. So this joint, the double cardan, will actually be able to manage those angles and that additional stress and load from the larger tires and off-road use. Another thing, these are serviceable. They're available either way. You can get the 1350 drive shaft or 1310, both of them, serviceable or non-serviceable. I went with serviceable on front and rear. I'm just one of those people that likes to kind of maintain or do I kind of over maintenance things sometimes, but each U-joint and the centering ball has a Zerk fitting or a grease fitting. The centering ball has one of those surface or needle type grease fittings. Tom Woods, they send a plastic needle with the drive shafts, just in case you don't have something. I have an aftermarket grease needle already, so that's not a problem. The joints come pre-greased, ready to install. You'll also notice it comes with new flanges or yokes, just depending on front or rear or whatever the application may be or whatever your specification is. But this is going to come with new flanges for the transfer case, and of course obviously a new flange back at the differential. Okay, so down here at the other end, this is the end that will attach to the pinion shaft at the differential. Again, basic design as other Tom Woods shafts, whether you're 1310, 1350. Got a single 1350 U-joint back here that is serviceable. It comes with the flange mount, so you'll need to remove your old Zebra joint mounts, whatever those are, off the rear end and the transfer case, and install the new flanges. The new spline shaft here is completely sealed. There's no rubber boot. Has a grease fitting, so you can service that, keep it greased, but it is sealed to keep out any contaminants, keep the grease in. And of course, the drive shafts are serviceable and rebuildable if you got to that point to where you actually had to press the 1350s out and put new ones in. But again, being a serviceable shaft, if I'm taking care of the maintenance, this should probably last me for quite some time and many, many miles. That was some information provided to you to help you kind of determine, what drive shaft that you need, what size you need, and gave you some things to think about as far as choosing what drive shaft. And we can do a quick recap. Vehicle weight, take that in consideration. Where your vehicle's only going to probably get heavier as you build it out and add accessories. But for an example, a 4-door JK that is fully trail ready, aftermarket bumpers, winch, lights, control arms, aftermarket tire carriers, all the recovery gear and repair tools that go inside the Jeep, full of people. That vehicle's really heavy, and if it's used like that all the time or most of the time, that'd be a determination as far as what drive shaft you need. Also, what tire diameter that vehicle may have. Also, the gear ratio, lockers. Has it had a engine swap? A lot of guys are, it's pretty popular putting V8s in these things, or even diesels. So take consideration the powertrain. Are you still running the stock engine? Is that where it's going to always have as a stock engine? So a lot of things to consider, especially guys that tow. I know Jeep's not really a good tow vehicle, but a lot of people do tow with it. They tow small camping trailers, small boats, things like that, small campers. So a lot of that you have to take into consideration. And I'm just trying to make sure I'm not missing any notes here, but I did find an additional note, talking about driveline angles. Short wheelbase vehicles, a lot of times a 1310 drive shaft is probably more suited for them because of the different angles that the driveline will be at when the axles are articulating, dropping off, things like that, versus a stretched vehicle like a JKU 4-door. Sometimes a 1350 drive shaft will have a little bit more limitation in some of its flexibility as far as those driveline angles. So that's something to consider. So again, I'm excited to get those new rock sliders on. Hopefully that's coming soon, and we can definitely start testing out some more capabilities of our Jeep. If you've seen in some of my other videos, we're not afraid to take the Jeep off-road, not afraid to get it dirty, but we've been limited a little bit with our stainless steel side steps, and part of that is because I wanted a old school look type Jeep that had a lot of polished stainless parts on it and polished aluminum wheels. I got more of an old school look lighting setup, and everybody's got blacked out Jeeps, so I wanted something different, and so that's kind of limited some of our riding. But we're definitely, those new rock sliders should be here in the next few days, and we're going to step it up and start really challenging the Jeep a little bit more now that it's outfitted with proper drive shafts, lockers, gear ratios, things like that. So hey, if you have any questions, drop them below, but make sure you check out the links below. Those links are going to give you a lot of good information, some good reading, and it will help you make a decision on what drive shaft you need for your Jeep. So make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it, and thanks for watching.